Well, apparently we're live again. Tim Motzer here with my wonderful friend, Brian Boland. And Brian where are you in Florida right now?
I'm in Port Orange, which is just
Port
south
Orange.
of Daytona Beach. Yeah, like north, east, central on the coast.
Nice. And
Yeah.
we were talking before we were on the air that you just had a massive storm shoot through there, and now it's just like sunshine. And
Yep. The usual, summertime, 3:30, thunderstorm, lots of lightning, lots of wind, and then, 20 minutes it's gone.
wow.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Well, today is somewhat of a celebration. We were here last month, about 30 days ago, I guess.
Yeah.
Talking about a single that we both worked on. I have a new album coming out on Rope-A-Dope, which is called Many Ways Around the Sun, and we talked about the first single last month. But today, there's a brand new single, the second one, which is called Let Love Open Your Heart. That's the message. And it's kind of a big message for this moment in time, I would say. And Brian, of course, mixed and mastered the album and this song. And this was the first song you mixed, as I recall.
I think so. Yeah, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
What do you remember about this song when you got it?
I just remember going through the tracks and just really kind of immediately, being really attracted to the melody and the vocal, of course, and then also just the acoustic guitars and stuff. That just really stuck out as just something that was very, very much you in a way. The way it was just, having done stuff in your studio before in the basement, just immediately hitting play. I was like, yeah, this is. I immediately kind of sunk into. Being there when you're recording it almost, just a lot of times you get stuff and, oh, this is cool, or you have no connection to the tracks, until you actually get your hands on them. But for me, it was very cool to be able to just kind of visualize where all that was done and, your process throughout the whole thing. So it was great. It was just really, I love the arrangement of it, and I loved all the background vocals and all that. I just thought it was very, and the slide stuff, it's just like nothing seemed there for any other reason but on purpose, not to fill a void, kind of thing. It all had a purpose, and it's just really cool. Yeah.
Nice, man. Well, it's like I've listened to the song a whole bunch in the last few days because there's actually a video that goes along with this track. So it's also the first video for the album, and that'll be available at some point. And maybe a little teaser clip will come out. But the song really stands out to me over repeated listenings. And usually when you get into mixing and doing like. What I was doing was working with video. So I'm listening to the song over and over and over and over and over. And I'm like, wow, this song has not gotten old. It still has something going on every time I hear it. And there's always an extra layer of something that I missed the first time. And I'm hearing different melodies and the backing vocals that I never noticed before. And some of the really precise slide guitar work that, as the first few listens, it's like, yeah, whatever. But then you start really hearing what's in there, like you're saying. And it's pretty cool. But, I'm really digging the song. And today I've been having some very profound feedback. I got an email from a very close friend that is wow, it's very heavy though. I can't really talk about it right now, but it's like, just incredible. And my sister heard it. She doesn't like anything that I do, it's like, is it weird? I think we talked about it.
You're right.
And, I don't know what it means, but she loved this song so much that she bought a CD today,
Oh, great.
which is, like, when has she ever done that? Probably never, ever, so it's, there's many things about that too, that's really touches my heart that she, reached out like that. And it was just great. But I think this song is doing something to people because of the feedback that I'm getting, and that's really nice to hear. But speaking of the CD, today is also the pre-order day.
Right.
So today, everybody's been pre-ordering the album, which will be coming soon, next month, which is not far away, and it's coming out on download CD and also a signed CD. I don't know if you knew that, but
cool.
A really nice design. So hopefully I'll be getting some of those soon, so I can actually hold them in my hands and see them.
Right. Tangible music. What's that?
Always an exciting day. I know, right? Stream that shit. And I want to let everybody know too that if you want to order it or listen to the singles, you can hear both singles today. 1krecordings.bandcamp.com. They're there. You'll see that Many Ways Around the Sun. Just go to that album link and everything will be in there so you can check it out, which is great. And I look forward to more and more people hearing it, And what I wanted to say earlier, too, is that the sound of this record is just astounding. And, that's what you did, or maybe it's a collaboration,
It's a definite collaboration. I just kind of took everything that was there that you had already done. And it's easy when it's all there and it's all, not just properly recorded, but purposefully recorded. It's the right way to put it, I think.
Yeah.
Just sometimes, just in the heat of the moment, and you grab a microphone and you can fall back on. If you listen back to it, and you might say, "Well, I just grabbed the mic, so it may not be the best mic placement." And it's like, well, it had its purpose, and it was what it is. And if you had taken the time to, get it exactly the way you or the ether thinks it should have been mic'd, then the performance would have probably been hindered. So it's that way for a reason, and it for me that it was great. Nothing was like a problem. I don't think. I think there were some few creative things we went back and forth on a couple of times, levels, and I think for this one I tried to just adding an extra snare or something, and then we kind of went back and forth on it and realized. I think Eric was a good voice of reason too. He's like, that's like the one thing, it's just a little out of place. And I was like, you know what, you're right. Just going in there and trying something.
Yeah.
Just to see what it sounded like. It was the one thing I was like, oh, let me try it. Usually I don't trigger anything. I don't like to do it, but I was like, well, let me see. And then it really made more sense not to have it in there. And then it just kind of all locked in together. And it was really all about the combination of everything. You listen to certain records. I've had the privilege, and I'm sure you have too, and many people watching, listening have maybe had this too. You find old recorded, like multi-tracks online of famous songs or whatever, and you pull up individual tracks, and you're like, hey, I could have probably done that. You know what I mean? Like, but because it sounds good, but maybe you thought it was going to be better, but then when you pull everything up together, you're like, wow. So it's really about the whole. Then it, more along the lines of that than, because nobody's listening to the kick drum soloed when they listen to the song. There's no reason to, so it doesn't really matter, So it all made sense. And, so I just thought it was just really cool, and I just love the fact that there's like a couple like great guitar solos. I think it's kind of something that's not just because you're an amazing guitar player and that's your thing, but it's nice to hear. Sometimes I hear songs and I'm like, maybe it's just the era we grew up in, but like, where's the little solo coming here instead of just like the bridge with a little something in it? It's nice to hear solos on quote unquote, songs that are popular or have a, however you want to coin it. But it's just, it works so well, and it's just so nice to hear because you don't hear it as much, nowhere near as much as we used to. So I think that's a really great thing. Kind of resurface.
It's really funny about that solo too, because I felt that the track definitely wanted a guitar solo in it, and the first time I tracked a guitar part at the end, the solo, it was short. And eventually it became, I just decided, I'm going to stretch out.
Yeah.
And so it kind of became two distinct solos, which is really nice. I think it just a two-part kind of invention or something. But
yeah, it works great.
the story behind that, though, that I kind of want to share is that where I was going to put that guitar solo at the coda, you know, I was looking through my guitars down here in the studio, and I was like, which guitar is it going to be? And I think I picked the Telly first and tried the Telly through the amp. I'm like, no, I'm not really feeling this, the way it sounds, this vibe on this. And then I'm like, maybe probably a Strat. And I have a bunch of Strats, and I played my red one first, but there was a buzz on it, it was humming, and I'm just like, let me see what else. But I have two of Jeff Lee Johnson's Strats.
Right.
There's a Leaf Strat, which is it has wooden pickup cover, pick guard, I mean, and it's been hand painted with green leaves, and it's really a beautiful guitar. And I plugged that in, and it has noiseless pickups. And while it was quiet, it was like, I'm not sure if this is it. And then I picked up his Paisley, his pink Paisley string.
I love that guitar.
And as soon as I plugged it in and just did anything, it was like, this is it. This is the sound. And so I plugged it in, and that solo just happened. And I remember playing, and my mind actually was coming out of the solo, and I'm like, this is it. Like, I just knew that was the solo. And when I finished, it was like, I played it back, and I'm like, dude, that's it. But it felt so good to stretch on that, you know?
Yeah, it works. It's not frivolous or, you know, trying to showcase you as a guitar player at all. It just works so well.
Yeah.
You know? It shouldn't have been shorter. It would have kind of taken away from the momentum of it, I think, too. But I remember when you got that guitar, and I've heard it many times, and I remember I've texted you, and I was like, man, I love the solo again. And you're like, that's the Paisley guitar. And I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
You can just tell it just has that. It's just that's a Strat among Strats, you know. It's just absolutely unbelievable, and the way you played that it's just great, you know.
Thanks, man. But you know, it's like that's the way this record went. It was just things like that. Everything had you know, thought behind it and intention, and it had to sonically work in the track. It was really like painting in a way. It's like, no, that guitar is not going to fit. That's not the right color, you know. And as soon as we, you know, got that guitar on there, it was like, there it is, you know.
It's such a different. It's so great to hear it after, especially people who haven't heard the album, coming from Many Ways to this, because Many Ways, you kind of putting the guitar down and, you know, hitting, you know, messing about in a really cool way, which is,
atmospheric.
Again, had its purpose, you know, and then to switch gears, and then just to hear all the different textures of between the slide and the acoustic and then the Strat. It's just it's really cool to hear how they all blend so well together organically. You know?
And you know what I realized too, listening over and over, is how this track builds.
Yeah.
You know, it starts from just an acoustic guitar, you know, strums,
you
know, and a voice. And by the end, it's just, you know, it's full on. So it's kind of really interesting just to sit in that for these last 2 days and just hear what that does. And man, it's like, again, like how you made those acoustic guitars sound in the track too. It's just like, they're so beautiful. You know, it's just carved in a beautiful way. I'm not sure what you did, if you want to talk about that at all.
Well, I mean, they were just, I don't know. Did you use the Lawson 47 on that or something like that? Because it was really great. I don't know what you did.
I used the AKG 4,
AKG.
And that was Jeff Lee's mic, actually. Yeah,
that's
so
the Desert Island mic. You know, for me, it's like that does everything. If you could have one, that's the one, the 414 for me. But I just use. I tend to stay in the box these days, but I use a couple of different plugins by this company called Acoustica that makes a Neve clone that I just absolutely love for acoustic guitar, and they have really good sounds. They kind of do sample emulation, not which is a little bit of a different way to do it. They're a company from Italy, and they actually take the gear and kind of sample it like you would like a sampled instrument, like a virtual instrument. And it just really works. I love it on certain things, especially acoustic guitars. And you don't have to do much. You know, I like to put something on it where I don't have to do too much. It's like back in the day when you just used a couple of compressors from a patch bay and the console EQ and just get it in there. So that did that, so it didn't take much. It was just running it through that, going, oh yeah, it needs a little more low end here and a scoop there, and then that was it. It wasn't really, and that type of analog compression emulation is really great for acoustics. You don't want to be afraid to compress it a bit as long as it's needed. And it sounded really cool, I think.
Yeah.
With the contrast between those and the electrics is great, and then just getting your vocal really kind of nice, sitting in there nice up front, but also just we don't like to bathe anything in reverb, but this one really, I think, is one of the ones where we may have probably used the most reverb, I think, on the vocal.
But
it's like,
it feels very present.
Yeah.
So it's like there's some size to it. It's in a nice space.
Yeah, I think so. It's kind of like, it reminds me of a lot of stuff, not the dry 70s stuff, but like, there's some things that you listen to from the 70s that have that kind of really,
super dry.
Yeah, where it's like in your face, but still wet, but also very, the acoustics are just like, you're inside the instrument almost.
Yeah. Something else that I wanted to point out to you, again, just because I've been listening to this track over and over, and I'm just really hearing everything now. You're a bass player too, and I wanted to point that out. But when I decided, as this track was going on, I was like, oh, I got to get a bass on this. And I'm looking around, and I have a 70s, it's Barry's old bass, the 70, he calls it, what's he called? He has a name, Spooky. It's called Spooky, named bass, Spooky. But it's a black 74.
The black one, yeah, the black one, yeah.
Frankenstein P bass. And I just was listening to the song. I'm like, yeah, it needs this bass. It needs a P bass for the weight. It needed some, the back end of a Cadillac or something on it,
Yeah.
And I plugged that directly into the API preamp and tracked it. That's what you got.
That's all you need.
Direct injection. And as soon as I started playing that bass, it was like, oh man. And then the way you dialed it in on this track, that bass, because I know what you do, and that's one of the things that I've always known about you. It's like the bottom end clarity, but you always like a little bit more than most people. People are afraid to push the bottom end, and you've always had that. All your mixes are always like have a beautiful girth to them. We might even call it ass.
Yeah, you could do that. You could say that. We're live. It's all good. Yeah, well, I mean, those, like Barry will tell you as well, he's the bassist in Orion Tango for your other thing that we're doing. Like, he's like, yeah, the P bass is just, it'll shake your foundation, man. And it's like, it's true, especially the ones with the maple necks. There's something about those years. I don't really have to do much at all. I have a similar bass. I have a 73 with a maple neck. It's very similar tone. And there's just something that happens down there that's the only one that does it. It's really, it's not always the right choice, but for that track it really was. But it's just I like to not to overpower the song, but I think there's a way, when you understand the technical part of it, you can get it a little bit more girthy than you want without it sounding out of place,
But I feel like the track or the guitars and the drums and everything, to me, it seems like they're sitting in this, like it's just a beautiful sonic couch, and you're just sitting on that, and it's like, oh, this feels great. And the track is kind of leaning back anyway.
It is, yeah.
Once it gets to the end, and it's super laid back, but it's back, but also building, So it's like, I just can't, get over how great it sounds. And
I love the drums that you did too. I don't know if you want to expand on that a little bit, but it was so cool.
We can. What did you want to talk specifically
about? I just like, like your approach to them. Eddie Sanabria actually called me today. He's like, dude, he's like, the drums on that. What's up with that? I'm like, it's all Tim, man. He's like, what? I was like, yeah, man, it's all Tim.
Well, one of the things about this record that probably is worth noting or mentioning is that I did play all the instruments on it. And, you know, a lot of records today that are self-produced, I think, you know, deal with samples and deal with, you know, stuffing keyboards and the stuff you have on your drum machines and stuff. But when I started recording this, you know, I'm just looking around. I'm like, well, there's a drum kit there. And, you know, I have keyboards here and I have guitars here and bass. And I'm a player. I mean, that's probably the biggest part is like, it's easier for me to express my heart with an instrument than it is pressing a button, you know? And a vibrating string is like, you know, there's nothing like that. And the same with hitting a bass drum with a mallet or the snare drum with a stick or sitting on a ride cymbal and just listening to the sound of that, you know? So, you know, what I did on the whole record was build up a drum kit. So I didn't actually play a kit live because I don't, you know, I'm not really a drummer. I work with some of the greatest drummers, but you know, I think they've influenced me, but, you know, so I did track by track. So kick drum by itself, snare drum by itself, ride cymbals by itself, and, you know, tom fills and things like that. And so everything was discrete, you know, and then there it was.
That was so cool.
And I could react to that going down the track. You know, I could say, oh, it needs a snare fill. Like I could just feel what it needs and just do it and have a mic sitting right on it, you know?
Well, I think it helps with the feel, especially for someone who may sound weird, but like who is a player, especially someone who's as great a player as you, but may not be a drummer. But if you break down the kit and just play them individually, there's a push and pull that happens that would not have happened if you had tried to play, either you tried to play the kit or a drummer tried to play the kit. It's just completely of its own ilk, and it totally works on the record and really enhances the feel of it, I think, you know? Yeah, especially with the acoustic strumming stuff. It's like, and the bass, that's what I love. When you tell me you did them individually, I was like, oh, I'm like, okay. Because I was like, I'm like, I know you played this kit, but I'm like, I know you're not really a drummer, and I know you don't play a lot of kit. But then when you said that, I was like, oh, okay, that's cool, and it works, you know.
You know, I heard a story from my friend Dino, J.A. Dean, who's a dear friend and incredible musician, and he played, you know, with Sly and Tina back in the day in San Francisco, and he worked for Sly. Or, I'm sorry. Who am I saying? Tina Turner, Ike Turner. He worked for Ike Turner. And he was telling me that they used to do that. He goes, you know, with drum machines, they would actually just do one track of drumming, like the kick drum, the snare drum, because that became a thing for a long time, you know. So it's pretty interesting. That story came up when I interviewed him a while back, but after I'd already done this. And so I thought that was pretty interesting that they used to do that and replace drum machines and things like that, or leave them in, you know.
Yeah, I mean, some of the Blondie stuff too, like they would do individual, was it Heart of Glass or one of them they did.
Yeah.
I mean, Kleinberg's a great drummer, but they did individual kick, snare, they did them individually just to get that drum machine type of sound. So, you know, but yeah, I just think it's great. And then, you know, when it's all together, it's, you don't even think about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
but what I realized from doing that is I was going down and putting the kick drum down, and that becomes kind of like the bottom end of the rhythm. And as you start playing against that with the snare, the choices were very natural where the snare would fall against the music with the music. Yeah. But it's really true what you're saying. I could feel the push and pull between the two parts and then eventually the three parts with the cymbals and stuff like that. So
yeah, it was cool.
I mean, that's what great drummers do, I think, you know.
Yeah.
They do all that playing live, and it's like, wow, that's what creates the thing. And then of course the band is rubbing against all of that as well. So
that's where it's at, man.
Yeah. So yeah, man. So it's really fun breaking this song down and kind of remembering what happened. And then, you know, the background vocals, those went down really fast once I had the hook in I just laid them all in, and it was kind of like a vocal harmony improv. And once I got a second part in, and that I thought was working, then I did a third part.
It's super lush. That's what I like about it. It's very,
Kept going, and I don't know how many there are. Do you remember how many? Are there 4 or just 3?
I think there's 4, I think, but they're like, one of them's doubled, so it really, like, again, it made it just like nice and lush without it being over the top,
Yeah. I might have doubled them. Yeah.
But it really works, and it has this. There's like a whole like woody thing, you know what I mean, like that happens with the because there's a lot of lower harmonies, and then with the guitar and that particular bass and the way the drums sound and your lead vocal, there was this whole thing of, it's kind of the vibe that I always got out of your basement anyway. Was just this very like organic kind of thick sound, so it was just, it came together fairly fast if I recall.
Yeah, really fast.
I think we just did a couple revisions on it, but other than that, it wasn't the initial 90% or whatever, before I send it out to you. It was, I was like, yeah, this is working. I got to a point, and I was like, 2-3 hours or something, and I was like, I'm gonna send it to him because I'm starting to think, and it's time to send it to him because that's when it goes downhill,
Well, I remember the day you sent it, and maybe it would have been like revision 2 or the final one.
Yeah.
And we were just all, completely blown away by it, and listened to it outside and listening to it. And it was like, wow, Brian, you just nailed this. And that was the beginning of the record.
Yeah.
That song was just like plotting the course, like, okay, we got this one sitting here. Let's, let me figure out another one, and we'll see how it goes, and we'll find our way through to the end, and it was, man, what a beautiful time that was,
It was needed too, especially during the whole lockdown. It was a definite nice, bit of sunshine for me.
Yeah,
I'm sure, just to be able to work on something with your family that is interesting and challenging, and something done out of love, especially in a time when we were all just like, had many reasons to be bummed out. So it was cool.
Yeah, we had our head up in this record,
Yeah.
I was trying to remember what months that was. Was that last summer, or was it later than that?
I think it was like it was right about now, this time last year. I'm going to say we started, you were like, check the shit out and tell me what you think. And then we went from there.
All right. So right around July.
Yeah. So like around July, I think, is when we started. And then just kind of, gradually kind of went back and forth.
Yeah.
Which was good,
Yeah.
Sometimes that's good. Sometimes it's great to have, 2 weeks, in the studio, or like 5 days to mix in the studio. But this way, I think, is nice because you can space out that time over longer periods of time and take extra long breaks. And sometimes that's beneficial. And it would have been great to have to be able to do it side by side, But I'm just glad it worked out in the end.
Yeah.
Where you were happy. That's like the main thing,
It was a beautiful process, and and we would have these hangs too that were great, like on Zoom.
Yeah.
Kind of like talk about stuff. We'd listen to stuff and look at the Pro Tools sometimes, and other times we just hang.
Other times it wasn't even, it was just
the hang was part of the record. It's like the brotherhood. It's like it was just fantastic and so badly needed during this time, and it still is, of course. Everybody's feeling a little bit better now that they're vaccinated and getting out there a little bit more. But we're still like, be careful. And
creeping towards normal. Yeah.
Yeah. But we're getting there, hopefully. And
I think so.
I look forward to being in the same space with you at some point soon.
Oh yeah. We got some work to do. That's for sure.
Always.
Yeah. We got some much more mixing and plenty more recording to do in person. That's for sure. That's what I'm looking forward to the most.
Well, anyway, for anybody that's just tuned in, I just want to recap. This is Brian Boland, and Brian is my dear friend, and he's mixed and mastered my brand new solo album, which is called Many Ways Around the Sun. The second single was released today, and that's called Let Love Open Your Heart. And it's my first solo vocal album, so it's quite a departure, I think. And I'm playing all the instruments on that record. And if you want to listen to the single, you can just go to 1krecordings.bandcamp.com. And you can also pre-order the album. Today was the first day you could pre-order the album, so wanted to let you know that. And we're just psyched for you to hear it. You know, it's coming along. So we're almost there with the release date, so it's going to be great.
It is. Looking forward to it.
All right. I guess that's it for the moment. Stand by, though, Brian. I'm just going to say goodbye to everybody, and let's say goodbye to everybody. Brian. Tim?
Take care, everybody. Be good to each other.
Yeah, take care, and thanks for tuning in. And we'll see you again. I'm sure we will. All right. Bye-bye. We're still live.